The teachings of the Eightfold Path initially appeared in the first 4 Noble Truths sermon of the Buddha, which he delivered after his awakening, where he described in detail to his followers the practical and clear paths to Nirvana. These 8 paths are divided into 3 main categories, and they consist of wisdom, which is right understanding and right thought. They consist of conduct or morality, which is right speech, right livelihood, and right action. And they consist of discipline, in this case of meditation, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These practices are intended to help us go beyond our conditioned mind that clouds or hides our true nature, which is our Buddha nature, which you have often heard me speak of. The Eightfold Path is often portrayed in Buddhist symbolism as a wheel with 8 crosspieces called the Dharma Wheel, where each piece represents one teaching. It's important to note that these 8 teachings of the Buddha do not have to be followed in any particular order or sequence. They are not a list of successive steps, but an explanation of the 8 essential practices a Buddhist follower should try to adhere to. Each path supports the other paths, and so they should be thought of as being interconnected. Now, the Eightfold Path is filled with phrases using the word right, but it's essential to have a correct understanding of this term. The term right should not be seen as a synonym of good, as in good versus evil. It has no moral significance. Instead, right is characteristic of action, words, or thoughts that generate happiness, inner peace for ourselves and others, and drive us away from our suffering. So, the following description of the facets or spokes of the Eightfold Path will help you with understanding and properly adhering to the path of cessation of suffering by examining its 8 factors and their components to determine exactly what they involve. First up, we have the right view, sometimes called right perspective, right outlook, or right understanding. The right view is commonly viewed as the most important of the 8 paths, as it influences our understanding of the Dharma and the 7 other paths. The right view is essentially having a correct or accurate understanding of life, and is described from the perspective of the systems of karma and samsara, the cycle of rebirth. The Buddha explained that our actions, words, and thoughts have consequences, and that they will generate repercussions after death. From a Buddhist viewpoint, death is not the end. Moreover, the right view reminds us to correctly understand the truth of dukkha that tells us our suffering is created by our attachment to the desire to have our own benefit, or our cravings, to the desire not to have, or aversion, our attachments, and to our delusions and ignorant views. Another aspect of the right view is the importance to understand the world's transient nature through the truths of impermanence and non-self doctrines about reality. Ultimately, we could say that the right view is actually seeing things as they genuinely are, without any illusions, confusion, and cognitive distortions. We can incorporate this forced truth by understanding the laws of karma and samsara. We can avoid creating suffering by letting go of attachment. And we can understand the impermanence of everything and the doctrine of non-self. We can try to see over illusion, mental confusion, and cognitive distortions. Next, we have the right thought. Right thought is the second practice of the Eightfold Path, also known as right intention. The right thought is directly related from right view because our thoughts and intentions arise from our perception of reality. With the right thought, the Buddha instructed us that our thoughts, like our actions and our words, are continually generating karma. Therefore, it's quite evident while following the path of right thought, or right intention is critical in order to avoid future suffering. Whether in this lifetime or the next, we all suffer. Our thoughts are very powerful and they directly influence our mental states, such as happiness or sadness, which in return inevitably affect our actions. Having the right thought leads to the elimination of harmful thoughts for ourselves as well as for others, and it naturally encourages us to the development of wholesome states of mind, such as compassion, kindness, and non-attachment. If our perception of reality is deformed and twisted through the fog of mental categories, concepts, assumptions, and judgments, we will end up with some incorrect and harmful thoughts. While this can mean several different things, the right view is, at its purest level, the ability to turn away from the vicious cycle of craving and desire by engaging in a life of personal development and ethical conduct. According to the Buddha, this state of mind is the root of happiness. So, in a nutshell, we can understand right thought as thoughts, actions, and words that are constantly generating karma. That our thoughts and intentions arise from our perception of our reality. If our perception of reality is deformed and twisted, we will end up generating harmful thoughts. Following the right mindset allows us future suffering brought to us by our karma. If we can eliminate harmful thoughts and develop wholesome states of mind, such as compassion, kindness, and non-attachment, then we are achieving the goal. Ultimately, the right thought is turning away from craving and from attachment. Next, we have the right speech. The right speech is the third teaching of the Eightfold Path, and it is in fact quite easy to understand because it's less abstract than the other paths and has to do with the direct application of right thoughts in verbal communication. In Buddhism, the right speech is more profound than merely avoiding gossip and lies. It really means using the power of speech to benefit others and not to benefit only ourselves. When we have wholesome thoughts founded on kindness and compassion, we'll inevitably speak words that will help, heal, and support others. Too often we use speech lightly and without much thought, and without being mindful of the impact that our words can have on ourselves and on others. Being mindful of our speech is also part of this path. Generally speaking, there are 4 types of speech to avoid. We should avoid false speech, especially not to tell deliberate lies and to not speak deceitfully. We should avoid slanderous speech and not to use words maliciously against others. We should also try to avoid harsh words that offend or hurt others. And we should try to avoid mindless, idle chatter that lacks purpose or depth. Many people exercise very little control over their mouths. Controlling the words that come out of the mouth is a very hard skill. In fact, nothing is more difficult than controlling your mouth. Mastering the wild mouth and refraining from the habit of saying whatever comes to mind when hurt or angry is an essential part of right speech. Never forget the power of speech. It has the capability to inflict a greater deal of suffering and even to destroy lives. Negative or harsh words can cause people who receive them to lose their sense of worth and can bring all kinds of insecurity and inferiority into their lives. The right speech should be practiced with honesty and sincerity, keeping the right thoughts at the right heart. We can use speech to heal, not to hurt, by using speech as the capability to inflict a great deal of suffering and understanding this. We can also say that kindness and compassion leads to helpful healing and supporting words to others. We can also say to avoid false and slanderous speech and to avoid harsh words that offend or hurt others and to avoid mindless chatter. This brings us to our next, which is the right action. Along with right livelihood and right speech, the right action is part of the ethical portion of the path. It's the part of the Buddhist teachings that encourage us to cultivate wholesome actions through our daily lives and ensure that those actions do not bring harm to ourselves and others. The right action is motivated by kindness, generosity, patience, tolerance, and a vivid desire to help others to preserve life. As a result, these positive actions purify our karma, therefore having a direct influence on this lifetime or of the right action. This is mindfulness. This is total awareness of all the things that happen inside and outside of one's self. It's being aware of the infinite succession of present moments, happenings in one's body, in one's mind, and in one's consciousness and in the outside world around us. The right mindfulness is not only remaining aware of these things at all times, but it is also to avoid becoming attached to them. Traditionally, the Buddha divided the right action into three constituents: avoid killing, avoid stealing, and avoid misusing sex. Right action is basically understood by all, and it includes the following: avoid killing and causing suffering to other beings. Strive to protect all living things and life, including our planet. Refrain from stealing or taking that which is not given to us. Avoid being overly attached to sex, anything really, and don't indulge in promiscuity. Do not rape or force someone to have sex with you. Do not have sex with an underage person or with someone who is married. Next, we have the right livelihood. By laying down this guideline, the Buddha encouraged lay people to earn their living righteously without resorting to illegal, bad, or nefarious, treacherous activities. Because practically every adult's life includes a financial dimension, work and business need to be examined from a Buddhist viewpoint. Most of us spend such a significant portion of our time at work that it's important to assess how it affects our hearts and our minds. In today's complex societies, what does the right livelihood actually mean? Well, in Zen, we see work, financial security, and prosperity as opportunities for lay people to practice the Dharma. Rightful and appropriate economic activities for lay people should be based on occupations that do not cause unnecessary harm or exploitation of other human beings, animals, or the environment. For example, one should avoid working for a business that sells goods made by exploiting children or abusing workers or in ways that harm the environment. the Buddha encouraged people to engage in economic activities and to make a living in ways that promote compassion, kindness, and that are ethically right. He also advised lay people not to work in the trade of weapons or sex. If we take this teaching further, we can see that when a person does not have a job and cannot support his or her family, it's also a way to cause harm and suffering. Unreported employment, or working under the table, or off the books, are likewise ways to create suffering, this time for society, as the collectivity cannot benefit from your financial participation and your efforts as a contributor to society. Right livelihood consists of the following: the nature of our work, which affects our hearts and our minds, and to avoid resorting to illegal, bad, or nefarious, treacherous activities. We should also try to avoid occupations that cause harm or exploit other human beings, animals, or the environment. And we should try to make a living in ways that promote compassion, kindness, and that are ethically right. This includes working in legal ways so that society as a whole can benefit from our own participation and efforts. Next is the right effort. Right effort, sometimes called right diligence, is the sixth part of the Eightfold Path of Buddhism. The right effort is first and foremost realizing that you and no one but you is responsible for your own awakening. The Buddha made it clear that no one can make efforts for you. Not God, not a master, no one but you. You must do it for yourself. This is a very important teaching. In Buddhism, the right effort signifies avoiding and overcoming harmful tendencies and qualities and cultivating attitudes that support the development of non-attachment, compassion, and inner peace. Traditionally, the right effort is fundamentally the realization of wholesome qualities and the liberation from unwholesome qualities. The Buddha identified 4 types of effort, known as the 4 great efforts. These are the effort to avoid, to overcome, to develop, and to maintain. The effort to avoid harmful qualities such as greed, anger, and ignorance need to be addressed before they arise. The effort to overcome harmful qualities that have already arisen, and an effort to develop beneficial qualities such as generosity, compassion, and wisdom that have yet to arise. And we must create the effort to maintain beneficial qualities that have already arisen. We must make diligent efforts to develop ourselves and to grow spiritually, to let go of our attachments and our mental conditioning. We must make persistent, continuous efforts in order to get rid of our suffering and reach inner peace and happiness. As Zen instructors have often said, we must practice earnestly as though trying to extinguish a fire enveloping our heads. This is accomplished by simply letting go of body and mind. Self-cultivation becomes a better human being. It creates a better human being. It is not easy, but it's not impossible to accomplish. The Buddha himself and his disciples are the living proof that the task is not beyond our reach. They affirmed to us that anyone who follows the Eightfold Path wholeheartedly can accomplish the same goal and experience Satori, or enlightenment. So, right effort means the following. Realize that you and nobody else is responsible for your own awakening. Make steady efforts to develop yourself and to grow spiritually. Stop harmful qualities from arising and make an effort to suppress those that do. cultivate beneficial qualities, and make an effort to maintain those qualities. Next, we have the right mindfulness. The right mindfulness is the heart of the Buddha's teaching and the essence of the practice of Zen. Mindfulness represents our capacity to consciously be in the present moment, the here and the now. Through mindfulness, the Buddha suggested we become aware of our mental faculties and emotions while non-attaching to worldly desires and other distractions. By being aware of the four domains, namely body, feelings, mind, and phenomenon, we deeply connect not only with ourselves, but with life itself. The right mindfulness also allows us to see reality as it is, without being a slave to anger, greed, desire, and ignorance. This way, we become detached and careful observers of what's going on, and we see clearly and deeply. Right mindfulness also involves recognizing and liberating ourselves from mental habits and processes that sustain the illusion of separate self. This includes abandoning the mental fixation of judging everything according to whether we like it or not. Mindfulness comes with time, practice, and leads to the development of certain states of mind where one attains a certain level of letting go over his or her impulses, thoughts, and desires. The individual doesn't have to apply some sort of restraint or control over his or her unwholesome mental processes. They will simply vanish by themselves with the right mindset. The Buddha recognized breathing as the most basic way to bring the mind back in the present moment and cultivate and manifest the virtues of mindfulness, thus meditation. Mindfulness is at the heart of Buddhism. By being aware of body, feelings, mind, and phenomenon, we connect with ourselves and with life itself. Mindfulness prevents us from being a slave to our anger, greed, desire, and ignorance. Mindful breathing is a great way to develop the qualities of mindfulness. Next is the right concentration. The last and final path of the Eightfold Path is right concentration. The original Sanskrit word used was samadhi, and it is often translated into English as concentration. Samadhi is a particular type of one-pointedness concentration directed to one's self. It implies keeping one's attention steadily for an extensive period of time on a single thing, such as the posture or the breath, for example. The right concentration is applying concentration to better ourselves through the practice of Buddhist meditations like Vipassana or Zazen or Zen. Meditation in Theravada is used as a technique to bring the mind to enlightenment in Mahayana. Meditation is used as the tool, and the practice itself is enlightenment. It's not a means to an end, it is the end itself. It is essential to understand Buddhism without meditation is not Buddhism. After all, the Buddha experienced Nirvana under the Bodhi tree while practicing meditation. Right concentration consists of the following: one-pointedness mindfulness directed towards oneself. In its truest form, it's the practice of Buddhist meditation. Without meditation, there is no Buddhism. As you can see, the Buddha's Eightfold Path is a series of practical, down-to-earth instructions that are oriented towards the attainment of the end of suffering and the reaching of, you guessed it, nirvana or enlightenment. These 8 components of the path to liberation were essentially the whole teaching of the Buddha, to which he devoted himself to the end of his life. Being almost an early psychologist in his own right, the Buddha taught the path differently to different people so that everyone could understand his teachings according to their own personal degree of development and education. One thing is certain, the Buddha teachings of the Eightfold Path are as relevant for us today as they were 2.5 millennia ago when he first gave them. If you have been enjoying this layman's introduction to Buddhism, please join me next week when we take a look at both a monk and layperson's application of the Buddha's teachings. Please drop me a comment below if this is helping with your knowledge and our practice. Please subscribe to each issue and catch future episodes. And don't forget to turn on the notifications so you know when a new episode is released. Thank you very much for your commentary and your support, encouragement, and sharing. As always, peace and love.